On a lonely country road, a single father pulled over to comfort a crying biker, never knowing she was hiding more than just a broken motorcycle. She was carrying a secret that could change both their lives forever. This was no ordinary meeting, but the beginning of a journey filled with hidden truths, impossible choices, and the power of kindness that would reshape everything. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where are you watching from. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Now, let's jump into the story. On a quiet stretch of country road, the sound of wind brushing against tall grass was broken only by the soft hum of crickets. The evening sun had begun its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Along the roadside sat a woman named Marina Cole. Her motorcycle leaned awkwardly against a guardrail, its engine silent, its chrome dulled by dust. Marina's shoulders shook as tears streamed down her cheeks. She pulled her jacket tightly around her, though it was not the cool air that made her tremble. It was the weight of secrets, of loneliness, and of a life that had spun beyond her control. Not far behind, a weathered pickup truck slowed to a crawl. Jason Hale, a widowed father in his late 30s, tightened his grip on the steering wheel as his 9-year-old son, Ben, leaned forward from the passenger seat. "Dad," Ben whispered, pointing through the glass. "That lady looks really sad. Can we help her?" Jason followed his son's gaze. He saw Marina by the motorcycle, her face buried in her hands. It was not just the broken machine that caught his eye. It was the unmistakable sight of someone drowning in sorrow. He pulled the truck onto the shoulder, clicked on the hazard lights, and stepped out slowly. Jason walked over with calm steps, careful not to startle her. His boots crunched softly against the gravel. In his hand was an old but clean tissue he had grabbed from the glove compartment. "Whatever's happening," he said gently, his voice steady and kind. "You don't have to cry alone. Life's a long road, and everyone needs to rest sometimes." Marina looked up, startled. Her red eyes revealed hours of crying, but behind the sadness there was also dignity, a quiet strength she was trying desperately to hold together. She accepted the tissue with a trembling hand and whispered a faint "thank you." Jason gave her space, crouching near the motorcycle, but not pressing with questions. He glanced back at his truck, where Ben watched curiously, his small face pressed against the window. Marina hesitated before speaking again. "It just broke down. I can't get it to start." Her voice cracked, but there was more than engine trouble behind her words. Jason nodded. "Well, I'm a mechanic by trade. I might be able to take a look if you don't mind." She hesitated, then nodded in agreement. Relief and wariness blended in her eyes. As Jason checked the bike, he noticed how carefully Marina avoided standing upright. Beneath her heavy jacket was a slight curve, subtle but telling. She kept her arms crossed, as though shielding herself. Jason respected the silence, saying nothing about what he saw. The minutes passed in quiet concentration. Jason inspected the wiring, tracing connections with a practiced eye. The motorcycle had a serious electrical issue, not something that could be fully fixed on the roadside. Still, he was determined to do what he could. "You've got a wiring short," he explained gently. "I can get it running for a while, but it'll need a proper repair soon." Marina nodded, clutching the tissue like it was the only solid thing left in her world. Her whispered "thank you" carried more than gratitude for mechanical help. It was thanks for the human kindness she had almost forgotten existed. Back in the truck, Ben rolled the window down and called, "Is she going to be okay, Dad?" Marina looked toward the child. Something in her eyes softened at the boy's innocence, at the simple concern of someone too young to carry the weight of judgment. A gust of cool wind swept through, and Marina pulled her jacket tighter again. She was hiding more than a broken motorcycle. She was hiding from a past filled with wealth, scrutiny, and expectations she could no longer bear. Beneath her biker clothes was not just a growing belly, but a life full of pressure that had driven her to escape into the unknown. Jason didn't know any of that yet. All he knew was that a stranger needed help and stopping was the right thing to do. For a moment, time slowed. A single act of kindness on a lonely road created a ripple that neither of them could yet understand. Fate had quietly woven their paths together. As the sky darkened into twilight, the story of Marina and Jason had only just begun. The first drops of rain tapped against the metal of the motorcycle. Within minutes, the quiet drizzle turned into a sudden storm. Thunder rolled above, and the narrow country road grew darker under heavy clouds. Jason glanced at the sky, then at Marina. "You can't ride in this weather," he said firmly, raising his voice to be heard over the pounding rain. "Why don't you come with us? My place isn't far. You can wait out the storm there." Marina hesitated. Years of guarding herself made her cautious. Yet the rain was relentless, and her body shivered from more than just the chill. She finally nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you. I don't want to cause trouble." Jason shook his head. "You're not. Everyone needs help sometimes." With effort, Marina pushed her motorcycle off the road, locking it securely by the guardrail. She followed Jason to the truck, where Ben leaned over and opened the back door for her. "Hi," Ben said brightly, his wide eyes filled with curiosity, but no judgment. "You can sit here." Marina managed a small smile and slid into the seat. Water dripped from her jacket and she tucked her hands into her lap. She felt out of place, but something about the boy's innocent kindness eased her nerves. The drive was quiet at first, except for the heavy rain pelting against the windows. Jason focused on the road, while Ben filled the silence with questions. "What's your name? Do you ride a motorcycle everywhere? Is it scary to ride in storms?" Marina gave soft answers, her voice steadier now. "My name is Marina. Yes, I ride a motorcycle. And yes, storms are scary." Ben grinned. "My dad fixes cars. Maybe he can fix your bike too." Jason chuckled. "One thing at a time, buddy." Within 15 minutes, they pulled into a small neighborhood. Jason's house stood at the corner, modest, but well cared for. The porch light glowed warmly against the rain. Toys scattered across the front yard told the story of a child who played freely. Inside, the home carried the comfort of a place built on routine and love. The walls were lined with drawings and family photos, most of them featuring Ben's smiling face. The living room smelled faintly of wood polish and something warm, home in every sense. "Make yourself comfortable," Jason said, motioning toward the couch. "I'll grab some towels." Marina removed her soaked jacket, grateful for the dry cloth he handed her. Ben hurried off to fetch his blanket, proudly draping it across her shoulders. "This is my favorite one. It's really warm." Marina's throat tightened. She whispered, "Thank you," touched by the boy's simple generosity. Dinner was simple but filling. Grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. Jason moved easily in the kitchen, the kind of man who had learned to balance work and parenting without complaint. Ben chattered through the meal, telling stories about school, his favorite games, and his latest piano lesson. Marina listened, nodding and smiling in places where her heart allowed. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe. Jason noticed her quiet glances around the room, the way she seemed both comforted and unsettled by the closeness between him and his son. "You look like you could use rest," he said kindly after dinner. "We've got a spare room. You're welcome to stay until the weather clears." Marina hesitated again. She had spent so long hiding, so long keeping her distance from everyone, that the idea of staying in a stranger's home felt overwhelming. Yet something about the way Jason spoke, steady, calm, without expectation, made her believe his words. "That's very kind," she said softly. I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding," Jason replied. "We've all had times when we needed a hand." Later that evening, Ben tugged Marina by the hand. "Come on, I'll show you the room." His excitement was contagious, his innocence disarming. He pointed out the clean sheets, the small lamp, and even offered her a stuffed toy for company. Marina laughed quietly, the sound surprising even herself. "Thank you, Ben. I'll be fine." When the house grew quiet, Marina lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The storm still raged outside, but within these walls, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. She thought of her family, of the world she had left behind, and of the secret she carried under her heart. She knew she couldn't stay hidden forever. But tonight, in this small house filled with warmth, she allowed herself to breathe. Outside, the rain softened. Inside, a fragile trust had begun to form between strangers whose lives had unexpectedly crossed. The safe haven was temporary, but it was already changing the course of her journey. Days passed, and the storm outside faded into clear autumn skies. Yet inside Jason's modest home, a quiet bond had begun to grow. Marina found herself drawn into their routines, not as an outsider, but almost like she belonged. Mornings started with the smell of coffee and the sound of Ben's chatter at the breakfast table. Evenings ended with laughter during homework or quiet moments of storytelling before bed. Marina helped in small ways, washing dishes, folding laundry, and preparing meals alongside Jason. She moved with care, her presence careful yet gentle. But with each passing day, it became harder to keep her secret hidden. Her loose jackets and cautious movements only did so much to disguise the truth she carried beneath them. Ben, in his innocence, asked endless questions about her motorcycle and the places she had traveled. His bright curiosity warmed Marina, though it also reminded her of the life she was running from. She offered vague answers, never revealing too much. Jason, however, was more observant. He noticed the way her eyes clouded when Ben spoke of family, the way her hand sometimes lingered protectively on her stomach, and the way her polished manners hinted at an upbringing far different from her current disguise. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Jason stepped out onto the porch to lock up for the night. There, he noticed a newspaper folded on the chair by the door. Bold letters caught his attention. Heiress Marina Cole, missing for 3 weeks. Beneath the headline was a photograph unmistakably similar to the woman now staying under his roof. Though her hair was different, though she dressed plainly, the resemblance was undeniable. Jason's breath caught. The realization hit him hard. The quiet woman in his guest room was not just a stranded traveler. She was the missing daughter of one of the wealthiest families in the state, and she was hiding. That night, when Ben had gone to bed, Jason found Marina sitting in the living room, softly turning the pages of a worn book. He sat across from her, his expression calm but serious. "Marina," he began, his voice steady, "I think we need to talk. I know who you are." Her hands froze on the book. Fear flickered across her face, followed by shame. She lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lie to you. I needed somewhere safe." Jason leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I'm not angry. I just need to understand. You've been all over the news. People are worried. And if reporters come here, I need to be sure my son won't be caught in something dangerous." Marina's eyes filled with tears she had tried so hard to hold back. She whispered, "I wasn't running away from money or fame. I was running from disappointment, betrayal, and a family that cared more about appearances than about me. When I told the father of my baby about the pregnancy, he walked away. And when I turned to my family, they treated it like a business problem instead of my life. I couldn't breathe there anymore, so I left." Silence hung heavy in the room. Jason absorbed her words, his heart softening as he saw not a heiress, but a woman wounded and vulnerable. "You should have told me sooner," he said gently, "but I understand why you didn't. You were protecting yourself." Marina nodded, wiping her tears. "If you had known, you never would have stopped for me. You would have seen headlines instead of a person." "That's not true," Jason replied quietly. "I don't care about your family's money or your name. What I care about is whether you and that child are safe. But I need to be honest with you. The longer you hide, the harder this gets. For you, for your family, and for anyone trying to protect you." For the first time in weeks, Marina felt the weight of her choices pressed against her. But she also felt something else. Trust. Jason hadn't turned her away. He hadn't judged her. Instead, he had given her the one thing she had been desperate for: understanding. Their conversation stretched into the night. Marina shared the whole truth: her heartbreak, her pregnancy, her fears about the future. And as the words spilled out, she felt lighter, as if sharing her burden gave her back a piece of herself. Jason listened, his steady presence grounding her. Though he didn't offer easy answers, his compassion gave her something she hadn't expected to find: a sense of belonging. But beyond the warmth of the living room walls, the world was still searching. News reports grew louder, and whispers of her location began to circulate in nearby towns. The safe haven was no longer invisible. Marina knew her time in hiding was running short, and Jason knew the choice ahead would test both of them in ways they had never imagined. The truths had been revealed, but the story was far from over. The morning air was cool, and the leaves outside Jason's home had begun to turn golden with the change of season. But inside the small house, tension pressed heavy against the walls. Marina had shared her truth, and though she felt a sense of relief, she also knew that her presence could no longer remain hidden. News of her disappearance had reached every corner of the state. Reports claimed she had been spotted in nearby towns, and strangers whispered of a young woman riding a motorcycle and avoiding cameras. Marina's quiet refuge was unraveling. One afternoon, as Jason repaired a neighbor's car in the driveway, a line of black vehicles slowed near the house. His heart tightened. The lead car, a sleek sedan, pulled in, followed by two larger security vehicles. Marina stepped onto the porch, her breath catching as she recognized the men stepping out. Her father, Richard Cole, emerged first. His suit was damp from travel, but his face carried more worry than anger. For weeks, Marina had imagined this moment filled with scolding, shame, and demands. Instead, her father's voice trembled as he said, "Marina, I've been terrified. I didn't know if you were safe, if you were hurt, or if you were gone forever." Marina froze, torn between fear and longing. Her father approached slowly, his eyes locked on hers. "I don't care about the business right now. I only care about you and the baby." Tears welled in Marina's eyes. After weeks of silence and secrecy, the weight she had carried began to crack. "I thought you would only see me as a problem to fix," she whispered. "That's why I left." Richard shook his head, his voice heavy with regret. "I should have listened. I should have been a father first, not a businessman. I came here because I realized that nothing matters more than your well-being." Jason stepped back, giving them space, though he stayed close enough to protect his son if the scene turned chaotic. Ben watched quietly from the window, sensing the importance of the moment. The reunion was not easy. It carried the raw ache of betrayal and the slow stitching of forgiveness. Marina wept as her father pulled her into an embrace. For the first time in months, she felt the kind of safety only family could give, though it came with the reminder of wounds not yet fully healed. Jason later spoke privately with Richard, his words steady and protective. "She's been safe here. I didn't know her full story at first, but once I did, I only wanted to make sure she wasn't alone. Marina doesn't need more pressure. She needs people who care about her, not just about what she represents." Richard nodded, his eyes softening. "Thank you. You gave her something I couldn't, peace when she needed it most." The following months brought change for everyone. Marina returned to her family, but on her own terms. She insisted that her voice be heard, that her choices be respected. When her daughter Grace was born 6 months later, it marked not only the beginning of new life, but also the rebuilding of broken bonds. Jason remained a constant presence. Though not tied to Marina by blood or wealth, he had become part of her support system. He and Ben visited often, their presence a grounding reminder of what true kindness looks like. Ben adored baby Grace, his laughter filling the room whenever he held her tiny hand. In time, the Coles invited Jason and Ben to the opening of their new community project, a center built to support single parents and families in need. Marina stood before reporters, no longer hiding. Her voice was steady as she said, "I once believed that family was only about name and legacy. But I learned that family is built through love, respect, and compassion. If it weren't for a single father and his son, I would not be standing here today with the strength to begin again." The words struck deeply, not as a headline, but as a human truth. Cameras flashed, but this time the story was not about scandal. It was about resilience, healing, and hope. That evening, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, Marina stood on the terrace with her baby in her arms. Jason and Ben stood beside her, watching the sky burn orange and gold. The moment felt simple, yet profound. Marina looked at Ben, then at Jason, and finally down at Grace. "Family isn't about wealth or perfection," she said softly. "It's about the people who choose to stay, the ones who lift you up when you're broken, and the ones who remind you what love really means." Jason smiled faintly, his hand resting on his son's shoulder. In that quiet scene, 3 lives, and now 4, were connected not by circumstance, but by choice. Theirs was not a traditional family, nor was it born of fairy tale romance. It was something more powerful. It was proof that kindness can change the course of destiny. The story had begun with a single act on a lonely road. Now, it ended with new beginnings, an ending not of closure, but of hope for all who believe that love, in its truest form, can build a home wherever it is welcomed.